this summer we had two really interesting cases of crowdfunding. Of course, Celeste Barber raised over $51 million for bushfires, but then people had to realise that that money wasn't necessarily going to what exactly they thought it was for. Also, there was the story of the young Indigenous boy, Quaden Bales, who had thousands of dollars raised for him and his family to go to Disneyland, only for his family to say, yeah, we're not sure that's the best use of that money. So, wanted to have a conversation about crowdfunding and should it be more flexible? We have Angharad Yo here from Good Game Spawn Point and Nick Kwek, part of the, I'm calling it the broader BBC Click family. He's joining us here in Australia. He's jet lagged. Go easy on him. So, should there be more flexibility with this?
Well, I did some research because...
Thank you. I knew somebody had to do it. Because, like,
one of us.
I got no time left.
I instinctively thought surely the money has to be spent on what is outlined originally in, the about page for this charity. But that is not the case. Almost every single crowdfunding charity website, it's different for things like Kickstarter where you're buying a product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was just applying Kickstarter rules to everything.
No. So things like GoFundMe, MyCause, and Facebook Charity, pretty much all of them say that it's to the full discretion of the people collecting the money of where it will go as long as it's sort of similar. That's let me find the wording.
Please find the wording.
So Facebook says the charities determine how to use the funds to further their mission. GoFundMe says that they have full discretion to determine how all donations will be used. And any such direction shall constitute non-binding recommendations only.
Yeah, right.
That is very interesting.
I was
did
surprised.
not come across that. What's going on? Good work, lad. Good work. But no, I mean, to me, it wasn't so much about the platform in this instance. It was about how the charities actually handle the money that comes to them. And I spoke to my wife about this, who's worked in the charity sector in the healthcare industry. And she was saying, if you get a lump of money, in this case with Celeste Barber, for instance, it was $51 million towards the Rural Firefighting Service, which specifically was intended for maintaining equipment and training staff.
They're going to have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they're like, we can't buy millions of fire trucks here because that's just ridiculous, right? And that's where a lot of
race
the
them
angers
in the middle of the country.
They're going to get jetpacks.
That's where the angers come from. And it's about the public opinion, right? And how do you even measure that? I mean, some people who donated to Celeste's cause, it explicitly says it's for that exact fire service and it's for the maintenance of equipment. And if they, I guess, thought it was for something else, then maybe they weren't reading fully. That's one argument. On the other side, things like, well, it's so ridiculous. If you've got tens of millions of dollars in your fund for a charity and you can't actually use it on real impactful applications, and what's the point, really?
Yeah.
Right?
I wonder if this will change the way people want to give in the future somewhat.
Well, that's the thing. Who truly reads the fine print? There's so many things that are donating to the bushfires. And what does that really mean? Where is that money going? Is it going to bush regeneration? Is it going to victims? Is it going to wildlife? Is it going to the RFS? And people don't look. They just jump on this bandwagon of, I want to help the situation because it's really terrible. There's a charity collecting money. I'll throw money at that. And because Celeste Barber's campaign went viral, probably too much money went into that one thing. The RFS does need that money, but does it need 51 million?
Yeah.
Probably not. So yeah, they are in a tricky position where it is likely that most people intended that money to be distributed more broadly. Also, not just New South Wales potentially, but because they're, not necessarily looking and seeing it's already got 30 million, maybe I'll put my money into another charity. It creates this really complex thing because, again, even though maybe legally they're allowed to do it, is it fair for them to take money that they have explicitly said is going to be spent on one thing and then spend it on something else?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to the coin here because on the one hand, you've got celebrity endorsement and celebrities raising awareness of a real world issue. And obviously charities are going to be really pleased and happy with receiving shed loads of cash, right? But then on the other hand, you've got a situation where certain charities and their what they're using money for, they just receive too much money and it's a kind of one-off thing. Like if you're working in the charity sector, then you would rather have, I mean, this is just, speak to my wife again, but this
next time we get your wife on.
Yeah, exactly. But you would rather probably have a steady source of income so you know where you're going to spend that money throughout the year. You're not going to have just a wad of cash that's just specifically tied to a certain area of the charity work you're doing.
So what the the RFS should just do is stick it in a low interest bank account, no fee bank account, and just use that for the next 70 years.
I believe there is some redistribution of it that has been engaged with, but it is a fascinating one nonetheless.
What was pretty interesting about the whole Celeste Barber situation and the and Facebook charity is, and similarly with GoFundMe, those sites, they work through a PayPal Giving Fund. And so when people donate to the charities, they have a minimum of 45 days to wait. So they say, we'll give the money to the relevant charity within 45 days. If they're not quite registered on our service, then it'll be up to 90 days, so 3 months after the issue, right? Or if they're not at all recognised, then they'll never get the money, and then that money will get sent back to the people donating. So I think there needs to be a bit of clarity there between people donating to charity on online platforms and then realising that their money is not going to instantly reach those individual charities instantaneously.
I think part of the problem is that crowdfunding charities is sexy. People want to put all of the money into one big pool and then see this delicious $51 million number. Whereas really, it probably would be better for them to just donate directly, because most of these platforms have some kind of transaction fee or some kind of way that they're going to make money. And like, as you said, with PayPal as well. So it does get more complicated, and it's this problem where we want to participate in some ways more than we really want the money to go where it needs to.
Yeah, and I think the conversation will change. There'll be discussions about how charities actually use the funds that they're giving in light of this. So Celeste Barber and the RFS are going to court, the Supreme Court, to discuss the clause and the contractual obligations of charities and how they distribute their funds.
All right, there is lots more of this in the podcast. If you download this show, you can find it wherever you podcast. See you guys.